All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Aloni. I'm with Schneps Media. We are the largest local media company in the New York metro area with over 100 publications from Manhattan to Montauk. Today, Brownstoner, one of our incredible publications, which covers a rapidly changing Brooklyn through the lens of real estate development and renovation, is here to present Going Solar. Get tax credits before it's too late. I want to thank our sponsor, Brooklyn SolarWorks. And we're going to have an information session today discussing how to save money when switching to solar power, which is amazing. So I am here with Ryan O'Hara, who is the business development manager of Brooklyn SolarWorks. Ryan, please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Totally. Thanks for having me, Elizabeth. We're happy to be sponsoring this webinar today and keep people informed on the happenings of the solar industry. And I'm here to give you a little bit of an overview on where things stand right now and then open it up for questions at the end. Yeah, my name's Ryan. I'm here based in Brooklyn, born and raised in Brooklyn. And I've been working at Brooklyn SolarWorks for a little over 7 years now. We're a 10-year-old company. And in our 10 years, we've only worked in New York City. We've just basically crossed over about 2,500 solar projects across the
Wow.
city. And that's
Wow.
everything
Wow.
from your typical brownstone townhouse, which we focus mostly on, to your co-op building or your small business or your house of worship. We've basically over the years helped everyone under the sun go solar. And today I want to talk through why New York City is one of the best places to go solar and what has changed in just recent months that have really flipped the industry on its head and how we're planning to move forward despite some of these big changes that have just happened.
Well, fantastic. We're thrilled to have such an expert. So, there has been some major news, though, in the solar
Yes.
industry, right, this year. So let's hit some of that at a high level, and then we can drill down into some of the details and also take some audience questions. So, what has changed, Ryan, this year with the federal tax credit?
Yeah, you'd have to back it up a little bit to when the previous administration had passed the Inflation Reduction Act. The Inflation Reduction Act really doubled down on the country's climate goals, and there were a ton of incentives that were extended when that bill was passed a few years ago.
Hmm.
And we were making really excellent progress in deploying solar and other clean energy technologies across the country. Unfortunately, this summer, with the bill that was passed in Washington, the beautiful bill, as it's called, um, we in the industry think it's pretty ugly for what it does to solar. And what it does for solar is for residential homeowners, it eliminates the tax credit on December 31st.
Wow.
So if you're a residential homeowner that was looking to take advantage of the federal tax credit, the door is almost shut for you on that because the work needs to be fully complete by the end of 2025. Um, and it also started to sunset the commercial tax credit for solar, which is not gone yet, but it is going to start to sunset starting next summer. So we're at a time where incentives are starting to change. And because of that, we've seen a pretty huge uptick in interest over the past few months. And like I said at the start, I've been here for 7.5 years now, basically. I have never seen anything like this in my time here.
Wow.
And the reasons for that, it's a little confusing to think about. Why are people rushing to find out about solar? But what people are realizing, even without any federal support, solar in New York City still pays for itself very fast. And a lot of that's just due to Con Ed helping us out by raising their prices every year.
Hmm.
If that continues, we're going to see a continued we're going to see continued interest in solar and other technologies that help lower your energy costs because the federal government can change how they approach solar and other technologies, but individuals that own their home, pay their own electricity bill, see how that has changed over the years. And we're getting calls primarily with how do I lower this bill? And solar, you have solar right behind me here. Solar is this amazing technology that allows you as a homeowner, or if you lived in a co-op or you owned a small business, it allows you to dramatically, of course, lower your footprint. But really about what people are interested in solar is how does it save them money? And
Sure.
that I'm happy to say, despite what the federal government wants to tell you, solar will still save you money moving
All
forward.
right. Then that's good. So that means that people should be still looking at solar now and, really answers the question, is it still worth it for them? What does it mean though for people that are looking to go solar, this change?
Yeah.
Sounds like it's still worth it in 2026 from what you're saying, but what does it mean?
It means that there's one less tax incentives available for solar. And so what it means is that the return on investment may be extended an extra year or two now because of the loss of the federal tax credit. But if you give me 1 second, I want to just share something quickly with the group
Yeah.
here. I'm going to share my screen just to sort of outline why people are still calling us. And it's thanks to who I just mentioned, the utility companies. Right for forever you had not many choices with where you got your energy from. There's the utility
Mhm.
companies. You have only one option really. Over the past few years now, as solar has grown in its efficiency and its popularity, really, people have quickly learned, okay, these hikes are only going to continue, as you see on the screen here. What are ways I can reduce my dependence on a big utility company? So solar energy provides that immediately for people, right? As soon as you install solar on your rooftop, you're making your own energy in real time. You're using that in real time, and then you're selling the excess back into Con Ed's grid. And so as rates continue to go up, right, you'll seen since 2020, they've been successful in achieving rate hikes every year. There was a bit of a down, there was a lower rate hike this year, but they're
Mhm.
planning to make up for that just with their proposed for next year hike, which is
Wow.
11.3%. It has not passed yet, but from my history here, following how these rates increase, there's little pushback on these utility companies. So we're of the mindset that this 11% hike will happen to electricity customers starting next year. And so the average homeowner or renter is going to start paying a lot more for electricity. It's a commodity we all use in our
Mhm.
everyday lives. And if you're a homeowner that heats and cools their house with electricity, I believe me, I know you're spending a lot of money now. You're probably paying thousands of dollars a year on solar. And once you install solar, when we run the analysis for people, like this is an example of a bill after solar goes up, right? So on
Wow.
the top hand, you see a huge electricity bill, which in the winter, if you heat with electricity, you're probably paying $400 to $600 a month on average.
Mhm.
Um, if you install solar and you can fit enough panels on your roof, right? We do an analysis for you. You can bring that few $100 bill to just the basic service fees, which in this case is $47. So it's pretty common for a person post solar to have a bill from 25 to 40, $45 a month. And that's all they
Wow.
pay to stay connected to the grid. They're not paying for any of their energy use, right? This, if you look at the bill here on the bottom, they have a negative reading. That means that they exported more solar than they actually used to the grid. And Con Ed, believe it or not, they take that power from you and they give you a full value credit for it. So at nighttime, you're starting to use power again from the grid, and you're offsetting that with the credits you've built up. It's a pretty key core concept of how solar works and how people are able to save thousands and thousands of dollars. On average, the average customer of ours saves about $80,000 over
Wow.
a 30-year period. And if that 11% hike goes through, these numbers only will increase your long-term savings. So, there's been a lot of changes, but the message of solar still stands. The value of solar is still there. And I can tell you that because I run the numbers every day. So I can
Mhm.
tell you if a project makes sense or it doesn't. And assuming the payback's under 10 years, which most systems are, there's a lot of bang for your buck there. And we're pretty excited for the future here because
Yeah.
New York City people are committed to doing the right thing. And if it can be a win-win where they're doing the right thing while also saving a ton of money on their bill, it's a great thing.
I mean, this is a no-brainer. I mean, to see those numbers is extraordinary. I'm like,
Yeah.
and close. No, that's really incredible. But who's a good candidate for solar?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's see. So a good candidate, it depends. So when you reach out to us, we have a couple of questions for you. We want to get your address to start, right? So we start looking at your address to make sure your roof, right? This is a roof right behind me with a canopy system. We want to
Hmm.
assess your roof type to see what option makes the most sense. Um, Based on your bill, we'll see how much electricity you use throughout the year. and then we'll put together a design, a 3D model of your rooftop and then the solar panels. And you know, there are some cases in New York City where solar doesn't make sense and we have to disqualify your roof. That's our job. Any solar company's job is to be transparent. And if you're not a good candidate, oftentimes the first call you make to us, we'll be able to tell you pretty honestly that you're not a good candidate. But if you own a rooftop and you pay an electricity bill, you're probably a solid candidate in New York City. Sometimes roofs are too small for solar, but we have a lot of different solutions, which I'm going to just share again our screen to just show you sort of the different designs that we offer people. Um, Behind me, and then on the left-hand side of the screen here, you'll see what's called a solar canopy. This
Hmm.
is designed It was designed when we started the company 10 years ago. It's because when you install solar on a flat rooftop, you have to maintain a number of fire clearances, especially a 6 foot wide fire path. So on a, 15 to 20 foot wide brownstone, you chop 6 feet off of that, you're not left with a ton of space. So by installing a canopy system well above the roof, you can allow firemen to walk underneath and you can really maximize your roof space. And like the one behind me, you can utilize the space below and make it an amenity space. It can be a livable area for you underneath your solar panels. So that's option number one that we'll present. And that's again for a flat roof. The second flat roof option that we offer is lower mounted system. It's simply called a tilt rack because it's a rack structure that we tilt towards the optimal direction towards the south.
Hmm.
Um, and that's going to be a lower cost option compared to the canopy. And so again, our job, if you're interested in getting a quote, give us a call. You can send me an email after this. Once you get me a copy of your bill, we put together a fully fleshed out proposal that sort of breaks down the design that we chose, as well as all the different tax benefits that you get. Um, and then the last option that we can offer people is sort of a flush to the roof design, which is mainly for shingled or sloped roofed homes, which there's a lot of in New York City. This is where solar began on the sloped roofs, right? Like the majority of companies focus mostly on these types of rooftops. It's as easy as it gets for an installation um, perspective, and it just is probably the lowest cost of going solar is on a sloped pitched roof. But like I said, we offer custom designs. So if you have something in mind that you're interested in exploring, maybe you want to do a canopy in the backyard. We've done a number of ground mounted canopy installations that then you could potentially park a car underneath,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I was
Or
thinking. It's a great place for that.
yeah, and I think it's just, a Brooklyn SolarWorks, we are a New York City centric company, and New York City is a fun, amazing place to live and to have grown up in. And it requires sort of nimble solutions. And the canopy is one example. And if you have crazy ideas, you can give us a call, and we're happy to talk through your maybe not so crazy ideas.
Well, you know what I love, Ryan, I think is the point is that it doesn't have to be up to the person. You don't have to worry about how is this going to work? What are we going to do? They can call
Mm,
you and that's what you do. You come and you determine what would be the best fit. So I think that kind of takes the question, the concern
mm,
probably out of the homeowner thinking, you know, what are we going to do? So that's important to know. We have a couple of questions here.
okay,
Why don't we jump into a couple of questions and
let's
then
do
we'll kind
it.
of get into some of the nitty gritty.
Okay.
Um, Jennifer wanted to know, does solar make sense for a summer home?
Mm. That's a good question. So, Jennifer, it all depends on how much electricity you use, right? If it's only in the summer, that means you only have a few months of the year that you're living there. And so that is actually energy use. But what you should do is calculate all of those bills that you've paid for the past year at that summer home. If it's over, I don't know, I don't think there's a number, but if there's a cost there that you're spending a lot on electricity during those summer months, let us do an analysis. We can show you how much solar you need to offset that cost. And then from there, the numbers, like I've said, generally will always speak for themselves with solar, right? Like there's never going to be a hard sell with how we approach a solar project, right? Like the nice thing is there's always going to be a return on investment. And just give us the opportunity to together a proposal and see if it makes sense, because every home is different and we can do an analysis for you based on, like I said, all we need is your address and a copy of your bill, and that can get us going.
Great, great. And good question from that is, do you have a radius of area that Brooklyn Solar Works does solar throughout?
Yeah, we do all the five boroughs. So
Okay.
that's we're limited to just the five boroughs, but we are basically pretty committed to the city. So if you're outside of the city, unfortunately, we can't help you right now, but we are a part of a group called Amicus. It's a solar cooperative made up of a few hundred like-minded, value-driven companies. And if you're upstate or in New Jersey or on Long Island, if you wanted a referral, reach out to us, and we have a network of trusted people we could put you in touch with.
That's great. So you can really be the conduit, not only in the city, but anywhere that you also, once they see
Exactly.
the amazing savings in the city, they want to do it everywhere else so that you can
Right.
help them with that. That's great. What about any insight into, a question came through on how solar improves the sale value of a home?
Yeah, so the a lot of the data we have comes from Zillow, which analyzes homes that are reselling with solar as an addition, and it's not surprising for me to learn that 5.5% of added value comes from solar in New York City, right? That's what Zillow studies state. As of last year, solar as an addition on a home, it's an added feature, right? Lower energy bills immediately. It adds in New York City 5.5%. Now, a lot of that's going to depend on the buyer. But what we're seeing now, and we've been here for 10 years with people that have bought homes of our old customers, people are thinking about this when they look at homes. They're thinking about, these clean energy technologies, these energy efficiency measures that they can take. And if there's a home already equipped with something like solar on it, where the paperwork is already complete, it's already up and running, and it's owned, right? We only
Hmm.
sell purchase agreements, so there's no issues with transferring a contract to a new person. The value of the solar system sticks with the home, and the warranty is transferred to the next person. So it's one of those things where it's been seen time and time again that homes sell for more with solar, and they're oftentimes featured in the listing.
It should be. I mean, if
Yeah.
you have $80,000 in savings, think about taking that off the price of the house. I mean, if you don't, this is a good thing to know. If your real estate
Mm.
agent doesn't know it, this should absolutely be a selling point because it's real money savings.
And I think what I've learned too, years in the years past, because it was a newer technology, I think there was some uncertainty with the homeowner. Oh, I don't want to deal with this. We can say now confidently, solar is like proven. It's tested, it's proven. And, it's once you talk to someone that's had solar up and running for a few years, you quickly realize just how simple it all works, how
Hmm.
easy it is to set up. And then once it's up there, you just see a lower bill. There's nothing else required there, right?
Hmm.
Maintenance is low. I think I saw a question about maintenance
Yeah.
and how often solar needs to be maintained. It really depends on where you're installing solar. Like in New York City, luckily, we get enough rainfall throughout the year that with the panels and even the panels behind me, right, there is a
Hmm.
5 degree or so pitch to the panels. Sometimes it's steeper. And just with having a little bit of a pitch, that allows you to have the water slide off and keep the panels clean. So you don't have to maintain that. And then like snow is going to slide off as well. So, what I like to mention when I talk about maintenance is that we, Brooklyn Solar Works, we're, we're committed to this area. We're committed to our customers. So when we install your system, we have a production guarantee on the system. And what that means is that, hey, in your contract and your proposal, we said your system was going to generate this amount of electricity. If something were to happen to your system where it shut off for a week and you didn't make as much as we said, we're on the hook for the difference, right? For whatever reason, we're on the hook. And so it just, contractors can set something up and then run away. We don't want to do that. We want to be there for the long haul. So if there is an issue, because we have to pay you if there's a loss in production, we're incentivized then to quickly come out to service it. So having been here for 7+ years, service in systems is very rare because these systems don't have a lot of moving parts with them. But we track everything here. We're based in Gowanus. If an issue arose, we would jump out to fix it immediately. We don't need you to get up on your roof to clean the panels off. We're watching everything. Please don't. I mean, you're welcome to
You.
if you want to, but
Right.
trust that Mother Nature will do their job to keep things up and running up there. And like I said, you have access to your solar system through an app and through a little website. So on a day like today, any sunny day, you can pull up your app and see how much you're producing, but we have the same access to that. So we can
Okay,
track things as well.
that's great. We have a question about how long, talking about maintenance and all that, how long does a residential installation typically take?
Yeah, I have a little timeline sheet I can share with you.
Oh,
Let's
great.
see here. Yeah, so this is a typical process for us. As you can see, the vast majority of the process is all the administrative work, right? To get your permit approved, to file sometimes with different city agencies. If you're in a historic area, you have to go through landmarks to get their approval before you go to Department of Buildings. If you need a special FDNY variance, you have to go through the fire department. So there's a couple of steps before we actually install your system. But if you follow this chart
And
here,
Ryan, do you help with that? Like how, or
good
how does that
question.
work? Yeah.
Yeah. So, Brooklyn SolarWorks, all the work's done in-house. So we handle all of the applications for you. Once you sign a contract,
Oh,
you
that's
might have
great.
to sign a document here or there, but trust that the work's being done in-house here at Brooklyn SolarWorks, and not much is needed. You're gonna, cut the check to start the process, cut the check at the end. That's about it. And
That's
some
great.
paperwork. But the question was, how long does the actual installation take? Permits take 2 to 3 months generally. The work itself on most residential homes, I'll start there, just a single day. An 8 to 3 day is a typical, usually show up at 9, we're out of there by 3:30. 4 o'clock on an
Mhm.
average residential installation. If you're a larger building, let's say you're in a co-op, that can sometimes take 3 to 5 days in some cases if it's a larger rooftop. But if you're a single family home, just a residential system, single day is pretty typical for us.
Wow.
And so once you sign a contract, you'll most always have solar within 3 months in most cases.
So once it's installed, how long until you actually get the benefit of it?
Yeah, so it's usually going to be turned on right away. There's a few inspections that need to happen, but like within a week or two of the system installation, that system is on, producing energy, and the bill savings begin right away.
That's
Um,
exciting.
so those are the energy savings, but you'll see on this last piece of this timeline, there's the tax credits. So, we talked a little bit about tax credits at the beginning. These tax incentives are fantastic, but they take some time to come back to you. So I think I have a slide here with what's available right now because we're in New York. We have a lot of awesome incentives still around. So the tax incentives you see below on the screen here, these come to you after the installation itself, right?
So
So
this is different from the federal tax credit that's expiring. You have all these other tax credits that are still going to benefit you.
exactly. And so you're still looking at least half of the system covered by just what the government's paying. So to start, New York State, they have their own state tax credit. It's been around for, I think, 15 plus years. And that's $5,000 that you get back. And that's a tax credit. So you have to be paying taxes to use it. But you get that the year after you do solar. So if this was done in 2025, let's just say, you're due that tax credit next tax season, so next April. So you don't have to wait too long to get it. So it's based on the year of completion. So that's 5,000 from New York State. And then New York City has a property tax abatement in place, and that covers an additional 30% of the cost. So 30% of whatever you spend on solar, you'll get back through a reduced property tax bill for 4 years. Um, and then the last one that you'll see there, it's unique, and it's really only if you're in certain historic areas. Not all historic areas qualify. So if you are in a historic area, definitely reach out so we can talk through this because if you qualify, it's an additional 20% credit that you get back. And we've done a few hundred of those, and those projects pay for themselves the quickest because of that extra benefit. Um, and again, it's specific for historic tax incentive for historic homes. to get that tax credit.
That's great to know. So it seems like a lot of variables. So how
Yeah.
does Brooklyn SolarWorks process manage all of this?
Well, it definitely helps, as I mentioned earlier, that it's an in-house team. I've seen us grow over the years. We started like when I joined, we were like 25 people in total. Now we're just over 80 people working here in, Brooklyn, installing solar, helping to permit the solar, helping to design the solar. So if you sign up with us, you're only working with Brooklyn SolarWorks, and the whole project management happens in-house. They're right behind me in the other room. They're all good people. And like, if I were to work with you initially on your solar system, and then I pass you on to the project manager, if there's ever an issue, like I can go over and talk to that project manager right away. And I think, especially like larger companies tend to subcontract a lot or like just sort of split up a lot of the departments. And luckily for us, everything's still here in Brooklyn under one roof. And that allows all of us to be super informed and also work together pretty collaboratively, which I think gives it a better customer experience because it's through one funnel. It's all through Brooklyn SolarWorks.
That is helpful. So I'm sure this question, if it hasn't already come up, but I see some questions around it. But there's a lot of individual homeowners, but there's also people who have co-ops and condos. So, what permissions are needed from a building's board for residents to install solar?
Yeah, well, if you live in a co-op, definitely give me a call or shoot me an email after this. That's sort of over the years, I've done a lot of different types of projects. Recently, a lot of my honest interests are within the co-op world, right? There's some new local laws that have come into place that are requiring co-ops to make changes to their building. So it typically will need a board approval, right? These are big projects for a co-op building. So if you are not on the board, but you want to bring this to your board, shoot me an email after this. We can talk about how to do that. Um, you know, Co-op projects take a lot longer because you have a lot of different decision makers. But what we're finding is all those incentives I just mentioned, the historic tax credit, I mean the state tax credit and the property tax abatements, those are not just for homeowners. Those also are for co-ops.
Okay.
So that's still 50% plus that co-ops can get back. And then you know, the other thing about co-op projects is there's a new law called Local Law 97. So if you live in a large co-op in New York City, you're going to start being required to reduce your emissions. And how do you do that? Well, there's many ways you could do that. I'm biased saying this, but it is one of the quickest ways you can reduce your emissions is by going solar, because that's an immediate thing that you see. It's immediate clean energy that you're generating. And so co-ops, we're starting to get a lot of inquiries from co-ops, and they make up so much of the housing stock in New York City. And so I'm excited to see these buildings do it. And I want to help them and guide them. So if you're on the call and you live in a co-op, shoot me an email after this and we can strategize on how to bring this to your board and move it along.
Ryan, share your email and I'll put it in the chat too.
Yeah, it's just my first name, Ryan, Ryan, at brooklynsolarworks.com.
I'm going to put that in here right now. Now, talking about co-ops and condos, we have a question that's along those lines. What if the person doesn't own their home? What if they're a renter? Is there any way that they can access solar?
Great question. And we definitely get those calls a lot. And historically, there wasn't a lot of solutions that we could offer, right? If you rent, you probably don't have permission to install your own solar on the roof. You could always pitch it to your landlord, but in most rental arrangements, you're paying for your own electric. So what is the incentive for the landlord to put solar up? So
Right.
generally what I advise renters, you could of course pitch it to your landlord and also take my email and I can talk to your landlord to see if there's a solution. Because hey, some of the tax savings could be interesting for landlords, right? Because as I mentioned at the start, commercial tax incentives are still available, right? The
Mhm.
residential piece is what's going away. Commercial still has a bit of runway, right? So if you're interested in a commercial style project, particularly on a rental building, let's just say that you want to pitch to a landlord, take my information and reach out and we can explore options. But if you are a renter and you don't want to talk to your landlord or your landlord's not interested at all, the best option would be something that's called, and you might have heard of this before, community solar. And the
Mhm.
concept there, it's like you had a big farm upstate New York that was generating all this electricity. If you lived in that community, you could subscribe to that farm And what that means is the savings the energy that's creating, you can see some of the savings on your bill. So there's a few community solar projects available in New York City. There's not that many, but my best recommendation for you is to just Google New York City community solar, and you'll find some resources online that can steer you in the right direction.
This is a weird question, but let's say you live by someone who has a Brooklyn SolarWorks. Can they contact you and see if they can click into that, or is that no? I mean, it's like it's whoever
no,
owns it, and they're
yeah, I like where your head's at.
trying to be a little creative here for the
No, but
renters.
but it's a good point because it makes you think more about how solar actually works on the grid, right? So you, the renter, could not technically see the financial benefits of that. But if you live on a block, let's say here in Brooklyn, and you see your next door neighbor has solar and you live right next door, best believe that during sunny times of the day, you're home, your neighbor might not be home. Some of that electricity that they're making that they don't use in the house will go right to the grid, and then it's going to have to go somewhere. So it might just make its way next door. So I like to sort of remind people that like we're moving towards a future of like distributed energy, right? There's not just big power stations that you get your energy from.
Hmm.
Now we're seeing Brooklyn neighborhoods become these little mini clean power stations. And, in that example, they're not seeing the financial benefits, but they are using some of that solar electricity, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. They just don't get the financial
You don't
benefits.
get the financial
So, but
benefit.
I
Yeah,
mean, it really is extraordinary, and that we are all connected to solar, really, even if we don't know it.
exactly.
Someone asked, you mentioned the federal tax credit and the two different between the residential and the
Hmm.
commercial. Someone's asking, what about mixed use buildings?
Yeah, if you're in a mixed use building and you are the owner and you want to purchase it for that mixed use building, it would qualify under the commercial tax credit guidelines, right? Unless you live there and you want to claim it for yourself, for your own residence. In most cases that you've just, in that kind of example, you'd qualify for the commercial tax credit, which is still available. And for those on the call that might be interested in a commercial solar setup, you must begin the work, sort of sign a contract, start the construction. This is a big date here, July 4th, 2026. That's the current deadline for those that want to take advantage of the commercial tax credit.
Okay.
So if you're in a commercial setup, you have a rental property or a mixed use property that you own and you want to put solar up there for your business or to support the tenants, however you want to play it, um, you got to start the process pretty soon,
Okay.
is my
So
best
everyone,
recommendation.
you have Ryan's email. Email him right after
I'm
this.
waiting.
Yeah,
Hello.
yeah, he's there. What about your roof? So if your roof has a warranty, how will solar installation impact that, or will it?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. Solar is mounted directly to the roof in pretty much all examples. If you had a really large commercial warehouse roof, you could do a ballasted solar, which it's just weighed down. You don't have to screw into the roof, you just weigh it down. But the vast majority of homeowners we work with have, you know, a roof that we tie into directly, right? Into the structural components of the roof, right? Into the top level of the roof. We have a 30-year warranty on all of our systems that includes roof attachments. So for every roof attachment, we warranty each of those and waterproof them, of course. But if there was a leak associated with those roof attachments, you're covered under the warranty. If you had a roof warranty in place and your roofer had concerns about it, oftentimes what it means is that we'd work with your roofer to maintain and flash each of those attachments to maintain the roofer's warranty. It's
Mm,
either you stick with your roof's warranty and have Brooklyn SolarWorks work with them to keep it all under that warranty, or you have us come in and we warranty our work, which again, when you're thinking about your roof and how solar can impact it, think about the amount of space it's covering now on your roof. That means a large part of your roof is not being damaged by the
right.
elements, right? You're protecting
Yep.
the roof. So it's a common misconception that solar is going to ruin your roof. And in many ways, it's extending the life of your roof while providing you with electricity.
Yeah.
So if you have an old roof, though, right, we do an assessment before we begin our process. We do a full roof and electrical evaluation. If we determine that your roof's not adequate for solar, we're not going to proceed until you let us know that you plan to have some work done or you work with one of our partners to get the roof resurfaced. We don't want to put solar on a super old roof. That's not the kind of work we want to do.
Okay. So I have a question here about multifamilies, and are there
Yeah.
any, first of all, can you do it with multifamily units? And are there any special rebates for multifamily? Are there special rebates for low and moderate income buildings, such as HDFC co-op?
Yeah. There's some really great incentives still available for HTFC co-ops for really the affordable housing world. If
Hmm.
you own an affordable housing building or you live in one, there's some very strong incentives still available. One of those is through NYSERDA. It's a rebate program. So if you're in an HDFC co-op, you qualify for one. If you're in affordable housing, you qualify for it. And why this rebate is interesting, we mentioned the tax incentives, right? Those come to you after the fact. You have to lay out the money or take out a loan, and then you get the tax incentives after the fact. With the rebate comes off the top. So that rebate actually provides significant savings to those that qualify. So, hey, I'll plug my email again. If you have any questions about an affordable housing setup that you want to put solar on or an HGFC co-op, feel free to reach out. And we can, like I said, I can tell you what's available. And if it makes sense, put a proposal together.
Fantastic, fantastic. So we have a question here. Do I need to upgrade my electric from 100 amp separate from installing solar? And also, how would that cost? How much would that cost? And would that, what's what's the
Yeah,
answer around that, around
that's a
the
great question.
electricity
And
and
again, as I mentioned, before we get too far in our process, we do a roof evaluation and we do an electrical evaluation. We need to pass an inspection to get this all signed off and approved, right? An electrical inspection. And so that requires us to assess your electrical setup prior to the installation. So we can determine, number one, is it up to code? And number two, if you have, 100 amp service, solar, we can interconnect solar into 100 amp service, but it depends on your panel and if you have enough space for us to tie in as is. So panel upgrades are not always required. If they are required for solar, we would include that in our scope of work. So we could do solar for you and upgrade your panel. A simple panel upgrade, this is a range, but it could be like $2,000 to $5,000 up, for a panel upgrade. That's a big range, but it depends on the scope. And,
Mhm.
we want to provide you with the solution to go solar. And sometimes that means doing some electrical work to bring you up to code.
Okay. And we did talking about cost. I mean, we did have a question here about, the range. I mean, obviously there's a range, but the range for installing solar.
Say that one more time.
So someone was asking about a range. Every home is different. Can you give us a range for installation costs
Yeah.
for solar
And
outside of the electrical panel?
yeah, and just to Sheila, you had a follow up to that. You're correct that I am sort of, I, there's sometimes you just need to do a panel upgrade. You do not need a service upgrade in most cases to put solar up. Service upgrades would only really be required if you were adding a lot more electrical load to the house. We're talking full mini splits, electric kitchen, electric dryer, all these things add up, EV chargers. So sometimes a simple panel upgrade to give you a little bit more space to tie in the solar is all that's needed. And that's pretty cheap. Service upgrades are pretty expensive and
Mm,
are not always required for these kind of setups.
great.
But to the fun question, like how much does this cost? Because I'm sure everyone's
We're
curious.
a range.
Let me
Yes,
just
yes,
pull up
yes.
the incentives again, though. So as a reminder that this is before incentives, before rebates, before any of this jazz. So if you're in a single family home in New York City, costs for the installation, and this includes all the things we mentioned, all the permit work, all the installation equipment, warranties, starts around 30 grand for a system. That's like a typical starting cost for like a flush mounted system or a rack mounted system. And if you do a canopy, that cost could easily get to the 50 to 60K range upfront. Now, the incentives you see here, other than the state credit, they scale up with the purchase. So if you invest in a bigger solar system, let's say a canopy, and you're spending $50,000, you're getting higher property tax savings, in addition to, let's say, higher energy costs, so higher energy savings, because you're installing more solar panels with a canopy system than a flush mounted system. So while a canopy adds a lot more cost to the installation because of really the equipment it requires, it gets you more solar panels in most cases, and it's easier then to justify that higher upfront cost if you're getting more power. But of that like 30 to 50K range, which is a pretty big range, we can give you a custom quote after this if you want one. We typically see paybacks in like the 5 to 8 year range for most homeowners. That's with current incentives, taking out the federal tax credit. So you invest, let's say, $40,000 into solar, you get back these tax incentives, and then the rest of the money you get back through avoided energy costs.
Right. It's significant. It's
Mhm.
significant. I mean, you said that you showed in that other one an $80,000 savings. I mean,
That's pretty common
that's
for us.
huge.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, that's right there. It's a no-brainer because that's one year, right? Oh, 30 year.
Yeah, 1 year would be crazy, but it's
Yeah,
over
I
the
was like, wait a
year.
minute, this is free. Yeah, no, in 30 year, but still it's a significant
It
savings
is. It is.
that you're going to be realizing.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
it's one of those things that, I meant we talked about the rates going up. Like we model about 3% inflation in our estimates. So we get to $80,000 by being pretty conservative. If you
Right.
see what's they're proposing in 2026 here, like they have not voted yes yet, but everyone's saying they probably will vote yes at the end of the day. Think about what that would do to your savings. If you're
Right.
avoiding that 11% hike with your solar electricity, we said maybe you're going to save $3,000 next year. You're going to save even more if the hikes go into place.
Right. No, it's a huge, huge savings. And that's fantastic. So you had mentioned condos and that you said
Hmm.
reach out to the condos. So what are some of the challenges that you've encountered with condos and condo boards and co-op boards, and how have you helped navigate them? Because I think so many people are in condos and co-ops.
Yeah, and again, that's again why um I'm very passionate about that section of solar because so many people that I know that live in New York City live in one of those buildings. And sometimes they're not a decision maker, right? If you're not on the board of a co-op, you're just a community shareholder, right? You don't have as much say as a board member does. So if you're a big solar advocate, but you're not on the board, you have to convince people on the board to become solar advocates. I've overseen a lot of very successful co-op and condo projects, and they're very exciting. But it really starts with we can only do so much. We can get you all the information, but it's going to really require, and maybe some of you are on this call, people that are very committed to furthering the cause and advocating for this in their building and getting support. You have to win community support. And most co-op communities are pretty favorable towards this technology. But if you have sort of old school board members that are hesitant to spend money, especially on something new that they think is unproven, like solar, it's an uphill battle. And I have
Mm,
been on these calls for years now, and they are uphill battles. Sometimes these co-op projects take a few years to come together. But they come together and they're exciting projects. I think the biggest hurdle for co-ops that I can speak more on, but the number one hurdle is financing.
mm,
It's for a co-op property, I mentioned 30 to 50K for an average homeowner's installation. A co-op building could be looking at 100 to 300K sometimes for an installation because these
wow.
are much larger rooftops.
Hmm.
The payback analysis still stands, is still a return, but where does a co-op come up with $200,000 for a solar project? That's why we do work with lenders. There are some really solid lenders throughout New York City that can help co-ops go solar by helping them finance the project. But as interest rates have not been super attractive, that has sort of hurt the market a little bit and made it tougher for co-ops to feel comfortable borrowing money to pay for solar. So that's what I hope the state starts to step in on more and helps to find a solution for properties like co-op buildings that are very interested in doing solar, but don't have that capital readily available. Um,
Right.
so boards can be challenging. That's of course always going to be one, but we can work through that. The money piece is the trickiest part. So some co-ops, like I've worked with, are refinancing to do a new roof. If they can get a solar estimate while they're doing that, they can sort of refinance and get money for both the roof project, the roof replacement project, and the solar project, and do those in tandem. That's the dream.
Well, look, you have a lot of information. That's why reach out. Reach out to Ryan at brooklynsolarworks.com because he has so much experience and you've seen it. You've seen it when it's worked, you've seen it when it hasn't worked. So you can really help guide people. I think the numbers also speak for themselves because co-op boards, the co-op's long term. It's not just for, 1 year. So taking a look at those savings is a huge benefit. So how does Brooklyn Solar, I mean, we're already talking about how you help with smooth transition. But how do you help with the smooth installation process and minimize the disruption for residents?
Yeah, well, like I said, like you are assigned a project manager once you come on board with us, and throughout the timeline, we're keeping you up to date with everything you can expect with the cl very clear timeline breakdown. And then when it comes to scheduling the installation, we send you a video, a little instructional video on what to expect on the actual installation day. And then like we arrive, when as soon as we arrive, before we start the work, we do a little walkthrough with you as well. So you're really clear on what we're going to be doing to install this solar. And so there aren't any surprises. But it goes way before that though. When you first reach out to us, it's our job as an honest company to be really clear and set expectations appropriately. So we like to think that from the beginning to the very end that we're sort of holding your hand through the process and making sure things are going swimmingly and there's no hiccups. Hiccups sometimes arise, but like you just always have a point person to look to. It's not just a name, Brooklyn Solar Works. You'll have a Kevin you can call, a Ryan you can call, a Christy you can call. You have people that are assigned to your project that are accountable for making it happen. And so, you're going to get that experience with plenty of other contractors. Like I said, we're not subcontracting here. So it's like you're talking to BSW employees, right? You're not having to go through loops to get to your contact person. Unfortunately, since I've been here for so long, I have seen a lot of companies come in and come and leave and burn out because they've tried to expand too quickly and then didn't follow up with good customer service. So then we started to get calls about some of these issues, and it's very frustrating because it should be a simple experience for people. But when you hear these calls of horror stories and they're like 3 blocks from our office, you're like, I wish you had just spoken with us. We would have given you a very different experience. So for those on the call, as you start to explore solar, do your research. We're one of many solar companies in the world, but there's not tons that are, you know, known for their beautiful customer experience. They're known for their cheap price and they're quick to build, but we have that guarantee in place. We have this headquarters in Brooklyn that we will all work out of. That I think gives us a little bit of an edge when it comes to customer service and just making sure that experience is super smooth.
I feel like Brooklyn SolarWorks, it's like the white glove company, where you really handle people carefully and you're involved and you have the app and you have all this information step by step. I love the video. You don't have to read anything, but just really thinking about holding people's hand through the process so that when hiccups arrive, they're not, they're handled.
Yeah. Yeah. No, nothing's perfect. There will be hiccups, but like when you have the confidence that you have someone you can call directly, that goes a long way. And that's a very nice compliment, white glove service. We're growing up here, I've heard of crazy contracting experiences that people have to deal with. We've gotten some amazing reviews of people saying, "Hey, this is the best contracting experience I've ever experienced. Can you do my kitchen?" Like we get those kind of comments from people, and at first it was
That's
pretty
funny.
surprising that they have had all these but it's actually pretty common in New York City. You don't know what you're always going to get with a contractor. We're pretty confident that you're signing up, you're going to get what you signed up for always.
That's really critical. And look, you're a part of the community as well. So that also makes a really huge difference, understanding the needs and being able to be available. I mean, what could be better than having Ryan's personal email to ask questions? And I really encourage all of the people that are here today, all of our attendees, reach out, find out what is going to happen in your home, what the design can be, what pricing can be. Find out all of that information because it sounds like there's many differences based on the needs of of the customer. And that's what your expertise lies, is being able to advise people exactly what they need and the process in which it's going to unfold.
Yeah, I think technically I work in the sales department, but so much of our work doesn't feel like sales. It's really just like keeping people informed. And like my mom was a teacher, like we educate people at the end of the day, and I like that part of this because, you know, the selling happens with the numbers you look at. Oh, this makes sense. This makes sense. I'm going to do this. What our job as a consultant really is to work, we'll talk you through the options available, answer all your questions, and just keep you informed on how this new crazy solar concept works. That's really our job at the end of the day.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you. I mean, we could be talking all day long, Ryan, because this is really great stuff. But I really appreciate that you're being here. You're sharing your expertise with all of us. I want to thank all of our attendees for being here. Do reach out to Ryan, find out what is best for your home, and start saving money. So thanks for joining us, Ryan. Thank you to all of our
Thanks, Elizabeth.
attendees. We look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Stay safe, stay well.
All
Bye all.
right. Thanks, everyone. Take care.